So why am I showing you a slide about culture? Well, if you think about it, it's logical. You spent years, possibly decades, building up your company, your baby. You've instilled in it your set of beliefs, your culture, because culture is set and defined by leaders. So do you really want to be selling your company to somebody who doesn't share your culture? Also, think about it in terms of your exit valuation. If the potential buyer doesn't share your culture, they won't value it, and thus your business, as highly as perhaps they should. So culture is actually really important, if not critical, to making a success of the exit process, particularly when you understand that it takes years to change. And for the people left behind after you've gone, if the cultures don't match, it can be a very uncomfortable place to be. So how do we resolve this? We'll start by looking for clues with potential buyers. Look at the protocol in meetings. For example, is everybody heard? Does the other side let their team speak? Is bullying permitted? Are challenges encouraged? The thing about a good culture is that everybody should be heard and listened to. No bullying occurs and challenges are actively encouraged. I now want to take you through something called the value disciplines model, which I've used for years to ensure a good culture fit for clients, be they sellers or buyers. It was created by Michael Tracy and Fred Viersamer in their book, The Discipline of Market Leaders. There are 3 elements to this, as you can see on the slide: product innovation, operational excellence, and customer intimacy. The idea is that to be successful, you should excel in one discipline and be competent in the others. So what does this mean in practice? It'd probably help if I gave you some examples of each element. Companies that specialise in product innovation would be somebody like Tesla with its electronic cars, or Apple with its IXXX family of products. Next up is operational excellence. This is quite an easy one. I'd put the big courier companies like DHL and FedEx in here. Think of what's required to get a parcel from, say, Middle America to Southern Australia within 24 hours. That's a big logistical exercise requiring operational excellence. Finally, there's customer intimacy. This is where you get as close to your customers as possible. A good example of this are MVNOs, or mobile virtual network operators. In the UK we have a number of these, like Tesco Mobile or Virgin Mobile, while in the US there's Google Fi or Boost Mobile. These companies don't own any of the hardware needed to deliver the service. They're effectively marketing companies selling the service of the underlying mobile company. So when you come to exit, look for a buyer who matches your culture. And I would argue that if you don't do this, the deal will probably fail. You'll either get very, very frustrated in the negotiation process and walk away, or if the deal is signed, key people will probably leave quite quickly because they don't like the different culture. And consequently, the deal won't be the success that it should be, which, if you're on an earn-out, is going to affect you in your pocket. Now do you see why I believe that paying attention to culture is critical? So now we've reached the negotiation stage. I want to start by asking you how you would define a good deal. When I deliver this lecture to a live audience, I get several different answers, the most popular of which is win-win, as you might expect. That's true only, I would argue, if both the buyer and the seller are of similar size. If they're not, how can you have a win-win? If you're a small software house selling to, Microsoft of this world, how do you get a win-win with a company that huge? One side is likely to be really happy, the other side probably not, and I'll guarantee it'll be the bigger one that's the happier of the two. So one of the things that I've come to understand over the years is that the very best type of deal is one where both sides hurt the same relative to their size. Let me explain what I mean. If both the buyer and the seller leave the final meeting having signed the contract and both feel they could have done better, I would argue that this is the best possible deal that could have been done. And the chances, therefore, are very strong that both sides will try and make it work. So, let's get into the negotiation. The crucial thing is to build a relationship with the other side. It's really important that you try and get a rapport with them. If nothing else, it puts people at their ease. If you don't like them or they don't like you, it's going to be very difficult to negotiate. And I would argue that the deal is highly likely to collapse. A critical thing to understand that it's not what you say or what you do that matters, but how you're heard or seen by others. When you accept that, it makes it a lot easier to get your points across and to explain the value of your business, because you stop thinking about how you view it and start thinking about how to present it to the other side so that they understand it and see what you see. There are a couple of techniques, I suppose you call them, to help you achieve this. The first is what is known in NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming parlance, as matching and mirroring. Why is it that we feel more comfortable with some people than others? Put simply, it's probably because we're mirroring or copying each other's behaviour subconsciously, or because they're doing it deliberately. Matching is when you delay copying so as not to be obvious, such as uncrossing your arms a few seconds after your colleague does. You can learn to match and mirror to build rapport. The second technique is to understand preferred learning styles, because there are clues in everyone's actions and speech patterns that you can use to improve your communication skills. There are 3 types: visual, auditory and kinesthetic. Depending upon what study you look at, around 65% of the world's population is visual. They think in images, seeing pictures in their mind. They often look into the distance when they're talking to you, and they use speech patterns with visual imagery such as, "Yeah, I can see that," or "Yeah, it looks good." To connect with this type, use a whiteboard and draw stuff, and use language that allows them to paint pictures in their head. About 30% of the world are auditory, so they hear things and will respond with auditory imagery like, "Yeah, I hear you," or "Yeah, sounds good to me." To connect with this type, explain things using words and sound imagery, not diagrams. The last type is kinesthetic, accounting for the final 5%. They're all about feelings, senses and movement. This type likes to be active and do things, and will talk using terms like, "I can feel it in my bones," or "I can sense where this is going." They also have a habit of fidgeting, which helps them concentrate. To connect with this type, you'll need to frame things around movements and feelings, which I, for one, find difficult. In all my years doing this, I've yet to meet someone around the negotiation table who is totally kinesthetic, because M&A is not an environment that lends itself to activity and movement. Having said that, I'm highly visual, but to the annoyance of many, I fidget with things like a pen or a paperclip when I'm concentrating, so you should be on the lookout for multiple signs. So what are some of the tricks of the trade in negotiations? The first thing is to work out who's in the room and who holds the power there. This isn't necessarily the person who's doing all the talking. From your standpoint, if you're using a professional sales agent, they should be doing most of the talking, but the power on your side obviously rests with you. That's true too for the buyer, so it's important that you direct your answers to the person with the power, and remember to frame things in their preferred learning style and to match and mirror them too. It's a seriously good idea to role play beforehand. Buyers are going to say things deliberately that you won't like to test you out. You think your business, your baby, is absolutely wonderful, but they'll tell you it's ugly. If you haven't role played, you'll probably react, a chink in your armour for them to exploit. A friend of mine was doing a deal with the Seagram's empire in Canada. We flew to Toronto and were wined and dined as you'd expect. The night before the negotiation meeting, we role-played in our hotel. As we were driving back to the airport, my clients couldn't believe that 95% of our role-plays came up, and that how confident and prepared they'd felt giving their answers. And I'm pleased to say the subsequent deal was a great success. Finally, always remember that nobody is holding a gun to your head to sign off on the deal. Your exit is possibly the most important financial decision you will ever make. So if you're not 100% happy with the way things are going and the negotiations are being done, walk away. I had a client in the wine trade who told me that before we met, she nearly sold her company to one of the biggest brewers in the UK. There they were, literally locked in a hotel room at 3 o'clock in the morning, about to ink the sale contract, when one of the brewer's team said something that my client didn't like, and she was so upset that she simply got up and walked out, killing the deal there and then. This was a multi-million-pound deal that died, all because somebody reacted to something said. Remember that culture slide earlier? She told me that the comment showed that their cultures weren't a match. Before we leave this negotiation slide, I need to issue a caveat. You should be aware that companies are nearly always sold what's called cash and debt free. This means that you, as the seller, pay off all the debt, such as any loans the company has made to you, any car leases for your partner or family members, etc. In other words, anything that is non-core to the business. And any excess cash over and above any working capital needed by the company going forwards is paid out to you.